sisters and brothers and friends. Some could say, well, you have videos on this Homo Hoover. Well, yeah, but I'll get to why I have to at least put emphasis on the main purpose of this video. Well, I should have said that it's my regular Thursday video in which I give a brief review of the previous service and sermon, which was miracle number 28, where Christ grants health to a woman who had an infirmity. In fact, she was so deformed that she couldn't straighten up to look. She had a severe condition from at birth. And in the temple, anybody that had a handicap, like sightless, they say, well, the reason was that that infant or a parent committed a sin. And Christ says, no, neither the parent nor that infant committed a sin. This is just of nature. And you have to realize I'm here because I have divine power from God, and he proves that you have to believe in the divinity of God and Christ and obtain salvation anytime, anywhere, not by buying 2 doves and then your sins will be forgiven. You see. So now I'm getting to where I have to say that because of world conditions, the Zionists are worse than the Nazis. Worse than the Nazis. Of all people to practice genocide of the Jews from their crazy murdering, experimenting to death, genocidal Hitler, well, Hoover practiced experimenting to death. Absolutely proof of him experimenting to death Americans. And then there's been other times in American history where they used maybe prisoners or something in experiments without them knowing it, or they're forced due to especially drugs to be experimented on. Give up body parts for money, for drugs especially, or just for money. The U.S. has imprisoned more than all the rest of the world combined, I think. The aUSsaA is a Hooveristic hypocrisy. And at the same time, they have this military constantly at war because that's the way to dominate. And so their policy has been to surround their enemies. And they have bases now surrounding Russia and China. They are at war with North Korea. North Korea has been trying to get a peace treaty, and the U.S. refuses unless North Korea does what they want them to. Well, North Korea says, look at Israel. You give Israel the planes and tanks, and they take over the indigenous population, which is the Palestinians, and say there is no Palestine, they want them out, practicing genocide. And they have weapons of mass destruction. And you're saying we can't have then our missile? And I say, well, no. We're in bed with the Zionists, but no, North Korea can only do what we want them to. If not, no, we're at war. And that's what it actually is. They told me Of course, we are secretly at war with our Hoover clique against the Russians. But then I was told we got to put a better effort because we're actually at war with the Chinese, and in 5 years it'll be a shooting war. Yeah, that's what they convinced me. So I did the best I could. So we have then, through lies and money, well, we print the money. We're more in debt, I think, than all the rest of the world combined. We print this paper money and we say it's good, and it's been established as the reserve in the banks of the world, so it holds. But we've had some serious economic conditions, and there are, and it might go completely bust if the other countries say, hey, we can print our own money, why should we accept your money, which is more in debt than anything we are? That's what amazed me, especially when I was in South American countries. They would sometimes lose their life or get injury, work under very difficult conditions, 6 days a week. Risky, get gold, sell it to the U.S. for the U.S. dollars because they weren't allowed to have gold. They had to use their money, which they said, well, no, it's paper, but the U.S. money was more valuable. Truth is stranger than fiction. Einstein has now been proven as a plagiarist. I conferred with him as a real close friend in 1955 and always defended him, saying, well, he's borrowing others' work, but the main thing is equals MC squared. Now, I'm my Italian descent, and he wanted me to speak German. I only know a couple of words, but he lived in northern Italy, went to school there, learned and spoke fluent Italian. He knew I was Italian descent. He didn't say, well, let's speak Italian. No, because he steers clear of that. Why? Because he robbed, not plagiarized, robbed Olinto de Preto, capital D-E, capital P-R-E-T-T-O, Olinto de Preto, E equals mv squared, and that's what he also copied. But then they say E equals mc squared, v is the velocity of light, c. And they say, well, that's his. No. It's Olinto de Preto 2 years before Einstein. I have proof of that. I have video that absolutely proves he robbed it from Olinto de Preto and a Professor Umberto Bartosi, who's not only a mathematician but a mathematical historian, wrote a book with those true facts. You get that on the internet. Absolutely, I say the truth. So now the thrust has to be, I'm forced, and I think all the peoples of the world have to rise and get reasonable employment where they govern themselves, not some Hoover inside power, that there was a secret pyramid of power and he's at the top point and he's got blackmail against any representatives and candidates. And that's what the Hoover transformed the U.S. into a immoral hypocrisy. Understand that? It's a Hooveristic hypocrisy, not democracy. Hooveristic hypocrisy. That we're constantly at war, and now we got Russia and China surrounded by going into those southern, warmer countries surrounding Russia and China. And we're actually at war for years against North Korea. So I think the world is being forced where you have to consider military science as number one, especially if you're not religious. I say man's most important is the discipline of theology. How did we get here? Why are we here? What best to do? And I'm going to say the answers because it's that important. How did we get here? Well, our natural world had to be from a supernatural power. And this supernatural power, believers say, is the divine power of God. Why are we here? Well, we're here in order to obtain eternal salvation and have divine life with God in eternity. And the first day of the week is God's day. Most countries say Dios Day, Dominico, but in guttural English they say Sunday. And it's the weekend. No. First day of the week you honor, and your obligation of salvation is Dios Day, Dominico. Then what best to do? Well, now this takes in the spectrum of the disciplines: theology, philosophy, social science, yet mathematical physics, and then there's the geology. A lot of them use as far as saying, no, we evolved. Evolved from what? The Big Bang Theory. Well, I have what I call a phase theory, and more have mentioned it, where we found from a coalescing the adherence of the finest particles into a mass, and this mass becomes one of stars and a galaxy and a universe, and this universe will then start as it expands and then sort of comes back towards the center in a phase, and you get Big Bang Theory. See, the phase theory incorporates the Big Bang Theory. And, well, I think 12 and a half minutes, I better get right to the point, and that is, we are forced then to say military science might be number one. To obtain justice. To obtain justice, it appears as though you have to have the ability in military science to at least defend yourself from being dominated. And it was mentioned by our most forward offensive general. The future of this is the English-speaking world. English-speaking countries are going to dominate the world, and it appears that way. Have say the most money, and the most language now is English. I say it's a guttural language, and not because of my Italian descent, but the language Italian, and I say that Latin is early Italian, and that's where you start your Romance languages. And in Italian, the words are usually with a vowel, so you spell the words as you pronounce the words. So it's the most phonetic, natural language. Then there's Spanish, French, etc. I have to say then, I'm going to need a part 3 to get into military science. And that is, what is best for the people? They have to rise and say, we want a better system than this Hooveristic, immoral hypocrisy. And I'll complete that with proof in part 3.